Good morning friends, you are most welcome to Think Eyes channel. Today we are going to discuss Practicing Anthropology by MAAN IGNOU and our topic is Disaster Management. Let us begin the topic. Challenges in Disaster Research. The anthropological way of doing research involves an in-depth understanding of the community and area under study. This is largely achieved by conducting fieldwork in an area by using participant observation. Fieldwork in itself is not a single method, but a battery of other methods of data collection together constitute a fieldwork. These include structured and unstructured in-depth interviews, focus group discussions, life histories, case studies, etc. When an anthropologist returns from the field, she or he is in possession of a large quantity of both quantitative and qualitative data, which is then analyzed to research to a conclusion. However, the field of disaster research poses some different challenges that normal field situations do not. If a researcher decides to study, for example, the social impacts of disaster, she or he will choose an area affected by some disaster at a given point of time and then plan to move into that area for in-depth research. This first phase is known as entering the field. It is quite challenging to enter the field affected by disaster. The time of entering is very important. Disaster disrupt the normal life of the people and they are busy in getting back to normal. This is very sensitive time. This is very sensitive time when extra care needs to be taken. To give you an example from the author's experience, the author had to abandon his field visit at the time villages were affected by floods. Since lots of disturbance occurred in the field, any attempt on the part of the researchers to force his or her entry would defeat his or her future plans of data collection. This crucial time should be utilized in getting second-hand information from some local contacts in the field and newspaper reports that can be verified later on. An ethical issue that emerges in disaster research is related with the extent to which a researcher can go to invoke response from the respondents. Since following a disaster people are physically and mentally drained, it becomes impossible sometimes to continue with the interview. Such a condition can also occur in the normal times, but the magnitude is greater during an emergency situation or periods just following emergency situation. Most discussion of the ethics of research assume that researcher seeks to maintain a neutral or impartial stance, at least insofar as their role as researcher is concerned. Researchers face an ethical dilemma, often without being aware of it. This is the temptation to take sides. This dilemma, however, is not unique to disaster research. It clearly exists, for example, in studies that are conventionally described as social problems and deviant behavior, Stalin 2006. However, ethical issues in disaster research seem especially salient in events that become politically contentious. Accusations, suspicions, and finger pointing make the researcher more visible to everyone involved, both during data gathering and afterwards. As researchers, we all have to undertake an important process of selecting respondents and making them understand that why they are selected, which is a necessary but difficult task. However, in a disaster situation, this task becomes even more difficult since people who are left out become apprehensive about their status and they fear that since the researcher has left them and not recorded their version of reality, they may not get necessary aid at the time of disaster. This situation makes a disaster field even more challenging. Anthropological research methods can generate rich data on the social impacts of disasters and in turn can be very useful in effective disaster management. The intensive fieldwork tradition has the capability to understand the impact of disaster on the social fabric of a community. It is also useful in understanding social change. The qualitative data generated through fieldwork can give insight into the indigenous knowledge system of the community under study, which can be integrated with the existing disaster management plan for better response and resilience. Also, the qualitative data helps in understanding the collective mind of the people regarding their problems, miseries, vulnerabilities, aspirations, and expectations in a disaster situation. Joshi et al. 2010. Another advantage of this type of data is that it can be put to statistical use by deciphering the dominant themes and major issues in the document by putting them to content analysis. Thus, anthropology and anthropologists have a lot to contribute positively towards understanding impacts of disaster and managing it by reducing vulnerability and increasing resilience. Next heading is opportunities for anthropologists in the field of disaster management. You must have got a fair amount of idea from the above discussion about the role anthropology is playing and can play in the field of disaster management. This has opened up many areas where anthropologists can get and are getting employment. Those students who are more inclined towards conducting research in this field will find immense opportunities both in national and international arenas. Disaster management is becoming important with every passing disaster, which is devastating lives. This needs quality research and documentation for better management. A lot of economic resources are being diverted to manage disasters. These resources are utilized to undertake projects on disaster impact and setting up of institutions of national importance to understand disasters. Institutes like National Institute of Disaster Management (NIDM), Tata Institute of Social Sciences (TISS), and many Indian universities teaching courses on disaster management open up immense opportunities for people trained in this special field. There are some international projects that are totally devoted to the study of disasters, like the European Union Sixth Framework Project entitled Integrated Health, Social and Economic Impacts of Extreme Events, Evidence, Methods and Tools, which had anthropologists as their research team members and coordinators. Apart from this, many national and international agencies and NGOs are running big projects on disaster management and require personnel who are trained in disaster research methodology. Thus, the field of disaster management offers a unique opportunity for cutting edge, path breaking research and social services where you can contribute towards making this earth a better place to live in. At the last, we will discuss Summary. Thus, in the above discussion, we have seen that a disaster strikes when hazards meet a vulnerable population. It occurs at the interface between society, environment, and technology. It also causes a widespread devastation and damage to life and property. As a result, people find their resources as insufficient to cope with such an event and require outside help and support in the form of material and counseling. Disaster management as a special area of concern at the national and international level has seen a shift in thinking from a relief centric approach to a more proactive and processual approach, which gives emphasis on pre disaster preparedness, planning and mitigation, and post disaster relief, rehabilitation, and sustained recovery. The anthropological knowledge and method of approaching disaster management is more people centric. The approach of an anthropologist is local, but its reach is global. To end this field of knowledge requires scholars that are trained in anthropology, as we have seen in the above discussion, and anthropologists have a bigger role to play in disaster management. Thank you very much.